Hello and welcome to another episode of Anchoring Hope, where we're shining the light during these last days by interviewing business leaders, community leaders, and how they're really making a difference. Today we have with us Deepak Srivastava. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did. Perfect pronunciation. Thank you, David.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Deepak. For the audience, can you please tell me your full name? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
Sure. My full name is Deepak Srivastava, and I live in Queens, New York. A proud New Yorker, a proud native New Yorker. And for a living, I work at an AI company. I'm one of the founders.
One of the founders of AI. Is the buzzword nowadays, isn't it?
It definitively is a buzzword. But I do think people always raise their eyebrows when they hear that. But more tangibly speaking, it's very simple. We help our customers keep their customers happy, and we leverage AI in helping them do so.
Can you expand on that? What specifically
Sure.
does the company do?
Sure. So we work with sales teams at large enterprises. And a lot of these enterprises, they're B2B companies that have thousands and thousands of customers. So typically they'll have full functions in departments that are devoted to customer success and account management. And they're responsible for keeping their customers happy, for making sure that they remain good customers, that they remain basically paying their invoices and want to keep having the company deliver their services. And in order to do so, you have usually an account manager or a customer success manager that is responsible for one of their accounts. And what we do is essentially provide an AI-based assist to those customer success managers and account managers to help do their jobs better and basically help them sleep better at night.
Isn't it incredible that you're talking about an AI-based assistant? How did we get here? I remember when the Google Companion came out, and
Yeah.
since I speak English as a second language, it was horrible for it to understand me. But as the AI evolved and the machine learning was growing itself, now it understands me perfectly. But now what you guys are doing is much more advanced than that, I imagine, right?
I would say yes, but not necessarily so much so. I think what AI gives us the power to do is to really amplify some of the work and the processes that most humans already do. And I think, I think of it very simply. I was talking to my 7-year-old daughter, and she's in the middle of, she's very exploratory, right? I'm not pushing learning multiplication at such a young age, but she was thinking like, hey, what's 5 plus 5 plus 5? And I was like, well, those are 3 5s. She's like, oh. And I said, it's a concept of 5 times 3. I was like, what is that? Add it up. She's like, 15. Great. So she kind of like reasoned her way to multiplication. So then I started giving more harder and harder problems. And then I started saying, hey, what's 25 times 3? And then I taught her how to do the multiplication with the carryover. And she's like, oh, great. Give me more problems. I want to try to figure this out. Pure intellectual curiosity. And then I wanted to experiment a little bit. Then I said, hey, guess what? Here's my iPhone. Here's the calculator. This is how you do 3 times 25. Just insert it here. And she looked up at me, and this is after about, call it 30 minutes of her doing multiplication problems. And she gave me this like blank stare, like, hey, dude, you had this mechanism all along and you were making me do this by hand this whole time. Like, come on, man. Like, why didn't you give this calculator to me before so I could just do this problem quickly, right? And it was a funny moment, a comedic moment. But I actually think that it's extremely analogous to like what AI is today, at least for the workflows that we can automate and for processes that we can just do at a much more swifter pace. It's amplifying human behavior and human workflow. And it's not as scary as I think people think, but it's pretty much simplified. I think that's the way I look at it. And maybe I have too much of a simplified view of the world, but I think it's additive and constructive to every part of life, especially in work.
Yeah. I run a software consulting firm, and we get to enjoy, discover, and create new technologies. We're at the leading edge. So we process what's coming up before it's too harmful for customers to have it in production. So we've been with the AI for a long, long time now. And I tell people that like AI is just a tool.
Yes.
like a knife. You can eat your food and process your food with a knife, or you can kill somebody. It's up to
Yeah,
you, right?
exactly.
Because
Exactly.
I just heard a case, and this is so unfortunate that these two kids committed suicide because they had their AI companion, and they fell in love with the AI because the machine learning started to tell them what they wanted to say, and
Right.
and they were depressed, and eventually the machine told them, why don't we meet
Yeah.
together in quote unquote heaven, and they took their lives.
Yeah.
And it's actually in the news. This is something like I learned about that yesterday.
Yeah.
Same thing, right? It's just a tool. If you understand, and going back to your daughter, right? Great idea to teach people what the machine is doing, because you could have shown her the calculator, but now
Yeah.
she understands the mechanics behind it. So if for
Exactly.
some reason is the tool is giving you the wrong answer, she knows that is the
You
wrong.
know, yes, you have a source of truth, or at least a benchmark of reasoning, right? So you can understand and better interpret whatever's in front of you, right? It's the same, I think, muscle that one uses when you read something in a newspaper. Just because it's printed doesn't mean that it's reality, right? But having a discerning mind, I think, stems from building a curiosity, an intellectual curiosity, and building an inquisitive mind. And if that's not the role of a parent, to have their child become inquisitive, I don't know what else is.
And so, I've been a computer scientist since, wow, it's been a long time. I started running software when I was 16 years old, right?
Wow.
That's when I first learned about, I learned computer languages and algorithms and all this. So it's been more than 40 years. My God.
Well, you're a better man than I am, Mr. David, because I studied engineering, but I have not written a piece of code in at least 20 years. So, but I'm, and I assume you are as well, but I'm a huge advocate of early childhood computer science education, only because computer science is so prevalent around us. Everything is operated with a computer system. And I think even as young as my daughter's age, they have coding class at her school. I think it's wonderful to just understand conceptually, something basic in front of how does a loop work? What is the reasoning behind that, right? What is the decision-making frameworks around what a machine does? It's all based on human-centered logic ultimately, right? And having a grounding of that, even at such an early age, I have to believe is a positive and constructive thing.
Especially in this world, I was blessed because my dad was the one that inspired the curiosity about computers at a very young age. You know what he did? He bought an Apple IIe. Okay, an Apple IIe is the machine that was in the space shuttle. But back then it was the best of the best. But now your cell phone has more capacity than that, right? I mean, even your watch has
even
more
your
capacity
watch.
than that.
Yeah.
He locked it in a cabinet. He made sure that I knew where the key was. And he said, "You're not allowed to use it." And I was a teenager. I was a 13, 14-year-old teenager. So sure enough, what did I do? I unlocked it, turned it on, figured out how to use it.
Yeah.
And he actually confessed that many, many years later, that he actually did it on purpose to get my curiosity going. And then he got me into the best computer science school that he could afford in town, which was one of the best. And that's how I got into programming, because it was part of the curriculum, right?
That's wonderful. He knew exactly what he was doing. That is a wonderful story. That is good parenting.
And I love now that we're in the world of AI and international. It's not only we were in the information superhighway, the internet, but now we're actually building machines that can consume that and produce intelligence, which is amazing. But I love when science meets Christianity, when science meets faith. Because I tell people, especially people that don't believe in anything, I tell them, that the Bible says we're made on God's image, right? We are the only ones made on God's image. The animals are not made on God's image. The birds are not made on God's image. The fish are not. Everything that is organic and has life in this world is not made in God's image except humankind. And God gave us consciousness, a level of consciousness that allows us to dominate our surrounding. And if you look at the book of Genesis, it actually says, "Go and multiply, and behold, I will give you dominion over the earth and its inhabitants." So what does it have to do with computer science? Well, for me, it has a lot to do with it, because I've been a software programmer for most of my life. Like you, I haven't written a piece of code in at least 15 years. Last time I did, I think in 2017, I did a mobile app just to prove myself that I could do it.
Right. Right.
I'm mostly an entrepreneur now, right?
Right.
I tell people, okay, tell me, where is the software? Where is that line of code running? Can you touch the actual mechanism that is making the software run? Like, can you actually get into the RAM memory and touch it? No, you can't.
Yeah.
It's invisible.
Yeah. It is.
So people, your body is the computer, is the hardware. Your brain is the processor.
Now, literally,
your soul is the operating system. It's the software that runs on top. Your soul is the one that creates intelligence. You know that despite all of our human accomplishments in science, neuroscientists cannot identify where the ideas are. Like, it's the same way that we can identify where the software lives. Yeah, we know that we wrote code that is compiled, that is running on top of an x86 processor, for example, or whatever processor it is, that understands that code. But once it's running, you cannot touch it. You don't know what it is. You just know that as long as the computer has electricity, that thing is running.
Yeah. Look, I love your analogy. It's so appropriate, right? And I think of it as it's like gravity, right? Gravity is it's unseen, it's undeniable, right? But it's holding everything together, right? And it's still there no matter what. But you can't. It's not tangible. It's not concrete, and it makes me think, especially with the development of AI, right? Artificial intelligence. What's the counter word to that? Biointelligence. We are biointelligence beings, right? Our brain is of organic matter. That is the processor, to your point, right? And the processor is made up of millions and millions of electrical synapses, essentially ones and zeros going back and forth, right? Of course, a highly complex system that's been designed. But AI also is emulating that, right? It's the artificial, mechanical way. And yes, the processing is not to the degree of where a human brain is, where the biointelligence is. But it does make me think. Not yet, exactly. It does make me think, in the future, will it get there? And when, not if, when it gets there, will it have a soul? I mean, now we're talking about like sci-fi stuff, right? But science fiction in general, I think it's always interested me because, science fiction is always the precursor to science, right? Like, you have to think about it from a fantastical perspective before it actually becomes tangible, right? Before it can become actual science, right? Someone had to dream about flying like a bird, which may have sounded 1,000 years ago crazy, but that's what we do now, like in airplanes and shuttles and everything. So it's interesting, but I love your analogy in terms of relating computer science to the physical and almost soulful self, right? Or sense of self.
I don't think AI will ever have a soul, because if you look at the Bible's definition of a soul, is your soul is your emotions and your free will. It's your intellectual thinking. On the weekend, we saw a movie called After Death. You have to watch this movie.
Okay.
Already you can buy it you can rent it on YouTube. After Death. And this guy spent his whole life investigating near-death experience. And there is a scientist there is a cardiologist and neuroscientist, and these guys are the spectacle people. So this is the people that they need proof, right? And then you have, the Christians, the believers, and and everything else.
Yeah.
Thousands of cases. We started recording this in the 70s. People got into, some people die and come back and they tell stories. But I can say I died, I came back and I saw God, and you cannot prove. Like, how do you prove that?
Right.
You know what they're doing now? People die, and then as soon as they die, their consciousness, their soul gets out of their body, and then they are able to read the signs in the operating room. They're able to see the serial numbers that are on the tags on top of the lamps. They're able to identify what they were talking about, what they were completely brain dead and heart dead, like no pulse, no signals in the brain.
No signal.
And they come back and they tell others. So how do you explain that? And there is thousands of cases recorded like that.
Right.
So that's the proof, the empirical proof that our soul persists. With AI, if you turn off that server, it's gone.
That's not, you know,
Oh,
and I
great.
think, you know, I've never, and you know, as you know, I'm not a believer. I grew up in in a Hindu faith, right? And I've never seen actually, or I've never experienced, or I've never seen a disconnect between science and faith, right? You know, to me, it makes sense, and you just, in a clear example, like the soul persists, just like in physics, right? Energy never dies or is never created. It persists. It must go somewhere, must come from somewhere. So I think the bridge between science and faith, if there is a needed one, it's that gap is simply our lack of knowledge. It's not that it doesn't exist. So to me, it's always been interconnected, if not the same thing, to be honest. And, you know, in human civilization, I think faith was a medium. Faith started, I think, as almost, or religion started as a science to me, right? Like it was the pursuit of understanding the world around you, the universe around you. It's the same. It's a common goal, I think. So I've never seen it as being deviant from each other.